When we have incineration, we do have an ash problem. And ash need to be safely disposed of. You can't just ad hoc disposal. At present, it's happening. Again, the government is looking at using Puttalam for that ash disposal, which will be a more secure landfill. I mean, in that particular case, it's not landfills all over the place. You need to have a place for such secure disposal, at least one location in the country. Absence of such a location in the country has actually affected FDI, because some of these industries are not moving into the country because there is no provision of hazardous waste management in Sri Lanka. So lack of hazardous waste management can affect, because some industries inherently, more or less the industries that we think about, do generate hazardous waste. It's part and parcel of it. Our households generate hazardous waste. Our hospitals generate hazardous waste. But we don't have a fully fledged supportive hazardous waste management system. So our ash is an example from hospital. Just get dispersed with other waste and find their way into many places today, perhaps because of our bad disposal practice. So there's another project that you're looking at from Puttalam point of Puttalam. It's about a secure landfill facility for some of this ash that will be generated from some of the waste to energy projects. Now, that need to happen in parallel, and that too is currently being investigated. And moving on, because that EIA report is open for public now, comments. So we must understand the responsibilities of air pollution, and also the hazardous waste management comes with some of these incineration pathways. And that's why I stress, let's look at a process that are different and look at which is in line with our waste composition. We must, however, need to bring discipline in, right? And that's something Colombo needs. For the slightest observation of somebody is not doing right, we must not go back and say, look, nobody is doing anything. We'll get back into our bad practices and expect something to happen. We must try to correct and also be part of that change. Because all of us have the responsibility, because all of us generate waste as individuals, collectively. Our institutions generate, our places of work generate, our homes generate, and our schools generate. So nobody is exempt from saying, no, I'm not generating any waste. Nobody can say that, right? So I said, for lack of toilets, we do have a different type of waste also entering into our mainstream solid streams, right? So we need to this, and this is something the government expects and being made mandatory. But of course, the success at this stage is about 40% in Colombo. It's not a bad value to start with, right? Because if you don't segregate, you are not the waste will not be collected. So people are kind of pushed to do that. But that is a civic duty that is important and expects to happen. But if you separate, you do have the option of actually solving your waste problem by yourself and probably earning an income. I mean, not much, but you can. Why? Because if you separate out the organics and the recyclables and the organics separately, the biodegradables and the not recyclables, you can think about, okay, what am I to do with the recyclables? Can I sell them? And then there will be the need for recyclables. Because I'm separating them, they won't get dirty, and then there's a chance for better price for the recyclables. Organics, can I do something at home, right, if I have space? And again, there's a program which government expect even in the high-rises, condominiums, to introduce composting for each of those households, to get them into the households. But of course, we might use the compost after I generate it, and there is going to be a kind of a cash card and cash on delivery of the compost. So you can collect the points and then get compost. You actually can sell your compost to this point and collect like those recycling centers where you bringing something, few grams or few items, you collect some petty cash, right? That's the way. We need to get into this habit and habit fast. And it's an important contribution to solve a lot of problems. We're asking, please spend 5 or 10 minutes and separate the waste, and then the local authorities and the people who have to serve at this particular end can really improve on their service, because it will not be that much of a problem. And if you reduce, even better. And that's what is again expected. Because we say in Colombo, we generate about 1 kilogram per person per day. And of course, developed economies with the different consuming patterns, maybe about 1.25 kilograms per day. We're actually generating much more than what we should be, if you look at the economic position and so on, right? So we're actually generating much more waste, 1 kilogram per day per person. And what we're asking is simply at least do this 2-part separation. And why? Now what you're seeing picture is an innovative city. We have these terminologies: livable city, innovative city, and so on. So this is an innovative city, 4th in the last year's list. It's Barcelona. But the point is, however innovative, however committed and so on, you still have to do your part, because that's what I just want to stress. Nobody is really exempt from supporting the recycling pathways. You bring your waste, you separate it out, you contribute. Of course, there may be some of these machines now becoming smarter, right? You have your barcode readers, etc., and you can get sometimes even cash from this collection point. And those are what are called smart bins and things like that are now actually coming into play. But these two are simple explanation from the same city of people moving from one vessel to another, depositing the right one, and doing your bit for the day. And then the percentage recycling rate goes up, and the value goes up, and the city can be kept clean, and it's all your effort. And you don't need a lot of effort from the rest if you engage in this practice. Because if you do not do this, what happens is at the process end, the cost of the process goes up. Right? That's what happened. And another aspect, when in Sri Lanka sometimes, our shopping list is pretty expensive. I want the Volvo compactor, I want the Bobcat, all the stuff. Sometimes I only generate 4 tons per day. Right? So to me, it's an interesting example of having waste management coming as an entrepreneurship and activity and so on. So even if you take Beijing, which has 20 million plus population, which is entire Sri Lanka, right? The city is managed, not exactly as you can see, with all these bicycles and stuff. There is this collection. There is this movement. There is a separation. And it's getter and clean. So we have to understand, that's why I put the scale of Colombo with Paris and Amsterdam, the 18th century. And look at the Beijing today. With 20 million, the entire Sri Lanka, of 1/4 of the land, of course, is a big city, not like Colombo, but the point is you're packing 20 million. And you're using technologies which will serve the function and have an enhanced quality of work life. All these things. And of course, it also supports the economy because you're producing what you have. Otherwise, what happens is we get a compactor, and compactors are not all the time helpful toward recycling. And there's a hell of a cost to pay for that. Right, and management, etc. So we need to look at how do we do this transition without losing quality, but understanding the appropriateness for the situation. It's important to think about that. So this is just another idea. I'm just linking because I'm only using pictures because this is a cinema hall. Right, so the recommendation is to look at the biogas. And this has been long time been telling, to the anaerobic digestion. Unfortunately, and very interestingly, today's event will see the first high-rate biogas system coming to manage solid waste in Sri Lanka. Because unfortunately, people have targeted biogas and said biogas never works, but we have used the wrong process in the wrong scale. And when the process is not working because of application is wrong, we blame the technology. It's not the technology that should be blamed. It's our application and our thinking which was not quite right. So this is where I said about carbon neutral city, etc. If we have our garbage, the organic waste, the organic fraction of the solid waste, we can use this type of biogas system. And this is happening right now, so it's not something that I'm saying as fiction. The input is waste. The outputs are liquid fertilizer, solid fertilizer, and electricity. Now, what we have been advocating, this is a slide I have used so many times in the same one way, is that you can pool in resources of 3 ministries and solve the problem and gain benefits. because your environmental problem of waste is managed to produce agriculture soil conditioner plus energy. So it's Ministry of Power and Energy and Ministry of Agriculture. You're sharing one pot of money. By having one process, you have triple benefits. And there's no other process which can have triple benefits, where you put waste in and get two productive outputs. Only biogas process can do that. And we have demonstrated that in some way, in a simple way, but these examples do exist. And it's also interesting, the current EU circular on circular economy, the policy guideline document came in January 2017, highlights this triangle, the hierarchy, and you can see anaerobic digestion is occupying the top position. Of course, below prevention. If you can prevent waste happening in the first place, no problem, right? That we all understand and respect, we should respect. But when waste happens and it's available, then what type of process should you move in? And the answer is, as you can see in the first one, is anaerobic digestion. So EU regulation, EU concept, or the advocacy part on the processes is very, very clear. Start with anaerobic digestion thinking, right? So just want to emphasize that fact from the most recent EU one. And with the concept of circular economy, we should not waste our waste, but make use of waste as a resource, whatever and whenever and in any way possible. And that is the concept of circular economy. Whereas in linear economy, you use, make, use, and dump. And you may do some recycling at some point, but proper system is closing the loop, right? That's what circular economy is. We are running linear economy today. So examples like this, very interesting for a city like Colombo. So this is, you can see the Gotland, it is a Swedish island. And humble carrot may be one major economic driver there. And it's very interesting how the branding and the product development from the carrot cake to the waste running buses in the system has come up, right? Where you leverage on the strengths that you have and then develop pathways and ensure that material gets used. The waste is not really wasted. And here the buses, the transport system is using that waste. And of course, it's available. Waste is collected properly. People participated in the separation, and so the organic fraction and the recyclables go separate ways, and you find a decent, the city, a place. So that's important for us to think. We can and we should. Again, going back to a town, the train. This train is running with biogas. Recently heard that this train is now not more running because of an economic situation, not because the biogas failed, but anyway, it was a demonstration. And the point that I always say is, now this is a case of using your own waste and running the train, whereas we appears to think today to buy diesel and put a train and move the waste away. So if we try to do that, we don't project Colombo sending a message to the outside that we are doing something interesting, please learn from us. But we are sending a message, yeah, we are doing something, but please do not learn from us, right? Because we are going to subsidize by way of expensive energy, using foreign exchange, moving waste from A to B. And that's 170 kilometers away. So something we demonstrated at Morato University. We asked the students to separate. It's very important. And then we designed a system so that you can keep your hands free, use the foot operated system. The lid comes up and you expect your separation. And then we use biogas for the organic fraction, supplemented by gardening waste, specifically Glycidia because it's a nitrogen source. And then we use a reactor, and then we ran a vehicle. So technically, this is not a huge come for the mankind, but what we were demonstrating was for the very first time. Right? The LPG three-wheeler we used with biogas. And of course, we need a higher pressure vessel to store more gas under compressed condition to generate more kilometers, but we were only requested to demonstrate to get people to think, yes, what you are doing is from the canteen waste, the transport system. So this is what we are talking about scaling up. Scaling up is not difficult. Scaling up can be done. It's not difficult science or technology at all. The waste can be utilized for this purpose. So what we used was the canteen waste plus the glycidia. And the residue, when you use an incineration plant, the residue has to be treated with activated carbon, lime, the liquid ammonia, all sorts of things 24/7, 365. Here, we get the residue and we put it and had a small farm, right? We had the organic, we had the food from products coming out from this, and it was showing very healthy growth. And not being agriculturists ourselves here, we were just putting that into this plot and allowing it to grow without looking at any of the concepts of proper agriculture, but the results are fantastic, right? So that's a major difference. And also we demonstrated that sometimes high-rate composting can come and play a big role in urban cities. When you have 10 metric tons per, may not be biogas, that's the best thing to go. You can use composting in an in-vessel composting system. And when we developed this at Moratua, we were looking at about almost 200 Pradeshya Sabhas in the country, which was generating less than 10 metric tons per day. It's only very few places that actually generate going to 50 plus, when you look at the 300 plus Pradeshya Sabhas and municipal councils. So some of these few major problems we have, because we have not resolved them, the entire landscape we see as we have a problem. But Pilisaru did solve in about 123 places to some extent, but they are not what we call high rate composting. So in some places when you don't have it high rate, we may have problems. Definitely you have problems with quality of work, the work life for the people. So this is where the new biogas will come, the Karadhyana, which started today, right, the foundation stone, but then ugly sight in terms of a good environment ruined by over the mispositioning of dumping, and then of course the leachate get into this, the Betaskanga and all that. So we can ourselves do some of these things of composting, and we can also do biogas at home. So the example that I'm showing is from an Israel kibbutz in places where you can see in this, I hope you notice it, even some planting is happening where you can get to for consuming, right? So you have waste from one end and you have the bag, and then the gas is coming, and then you have the effluent is being used to grow something. And that's because in Israel we are talking about 62% desert, you don't have that much water, and you value your resources. And it's great. So Sri Lanka do have the option of biogas at home, and then what you can do is, if you do that, it's better because you can reduce your LPG use, and you can stretch one cylinder for many months rather than one cylinder, let's say, every month. And your waste is going to support it, and if you don't get the gas on the time, you switch to the LPG. So that's where you have your convenience. So we do have the option today of off-the-shelf biogas systems for homes. Because actually, interestingly, biogas gives you a very independent, of course, we don't want to go down this path of going to the toilet, collecting the waste, putting it up, and then eating it from there. But I hope the principle is very clear. The organic waste is, today what we are doing is, we are pumping to the Indian Ocean. Every day we are putting 100 plus gully bowsers pumped to the ocean, and we don't have any treatment. Right? Colombo is not treating the sewage. So it's important, and the rest of it is we are using the normal tank. But the point is, replace the tank with a biogas tank, and you have energy coming in. We may have to change some of our attitudes in accepting, but we know we do that acceptance of this elsewhere. And so we need to understand we are not eating the gas, we are burning the gas. Right? So if you have an attitudinal issue, we can correct it with right knowledge. So this is an example. At our place, home, we were reduced to about 1 kilo for the entire household of 4 per week, the waste. But I demonstrated with my father, in a sense, that reduce it, we can reduce even further.